Hello everyone, welcome back. I have a tag video for you today. This is the Reader in a Bad Mood tag, which was created by Robert G., Reader of Books, and I was tagged by Kevin Toll from Kevin Toll Reads. And I believe I was tagged by someone else, and I'm going to go back and look and see if someone else tagged me. I think that I was tagged for this right around the time that the tag came out. There are 8 questions, or 7 questions and a prompt, I think. So here we go. Question 1. If you are invited to a social function, how do you respond? A. You decline the invitation by phone, patiently explain you are spending the evening reading, and then quickly hang up. B. You decline the invitation and make up a personal emergency which requires you to leave town immediately for an unknown period of time. C. You don't respond and instead cover all the windows with blackout curtains and ignore the doorbell. Well, you know, I spent most of my life doing C, just hiding away from other people. I'm not a big fan of social functions, as you may imagine. It's been quite some time. Usually I'm usually not in a bad mood when people ask me because they ask me so infrequently. I usually just say, no, thank you, or something of that nature. So I'm off to a bad start because I'm not generally in a bad mood. I'm actually genuinely surprised when somebody asks me to do something, to be honest. Question 2. Have you ever tossed a book to the ground in disgust, or thrown a book out the window, or shouted insults at a book? I have tossed a book, not to the ground, but off to the side. I've shouted insults at a book. There are copies of books floating around out there in this world that have my comments written on them because I have been so annoyed and angered by some books, by the tone that some authors take toward their subjects, that I just want to tear them to shreds, right? And I will just write my arguments alongside whatever they have written. So just page after page after page of me going, no, it isn't. That's a lie. That's not true. Or that's not how that works. Or whatever. Or you're such a contemptible prig. Or whatever. Just whatever. Whatever at that moment is on my mind. And there was one book that I'm thinking of in particular. It was a book about the Great Lakes region. And this author had traveled through the Great Lakes region, and he was just a terrible person, okay? Like, he met all these quirky people. He went out of his way to meet quirky people, and then he trashed them in his book. He made them look like contemptible idiots. And I just couldn't stand it because the whole book seemed to be just him talking about how great he was and his degree and, his job and all this, and just, isn't this guy running this sausage thing really stupid? I mean, he wasn't saying that, but it was very, very present in his tone that he was taking throughout this book about every person he encountered. And I just tore him to shreds from like page 1 all the way to the end of that book, and I donated that to a Goodwill. And so someone out there has that book, and I know people get angry and they say, well, I don't want you to write in my books and all that. And well, I don't know. Sometimes I personally, when I find a book like that, I just take that as like the cherry on top, like the whipped cream. And I mean, it is like, when I find a book like that, I adore it. I love to find books like that, and I so rarely do. Question 3. Do you think reading is a legitimate excuse to avoid doing things you really should be doing? Like the dishes, going for a walk, or extinguishing a house fire? Uh, I don't see reading as being an excuse for anything. I see reading as being a vital part of my everyday life. And so really a lot of things, there's like a tier of things that are important to me, and most everything is less important to me than reading, to be honest. But I don't have like a wife and kids. I don't have the amount of responsibilities that most people have, and so I'm really more free than most people to do things as they come at me. So I generally don't have a problem with finding time to read, actually. Um, Question number 4. If someone tells you they wish they had as much time to read as you do you A, find it insulting but ignore it, B, interpret it as a cry for help, or C, punch them in the nose? Well, I think probably I could do all three as far as depending on the situation. Somebody might say that and genuinely mean it, but most of the time it's said with sarcasm. And one of the things I noticed when I was writing this down is that no one has ever actually said that to me. And I know that because of these videos, because I whisper and I don't speak as loudly as I normally do and that sort of thing, and because I come across as very uh, open and everything, I have been told many times that I am not approachable. I I am more imposing in person than you might think. Uh, if you just see me on the street or something, I'm not mean, I'm not a bad person, but most people that I encounter are very polite to me. So I don't really have that sort of problem. I did one time, I wrote a book, I wrote a novel, and I did it completely for myself. Now, this isn't about reading, this is about writing, but it ties into books. And I had no intention whatsoever of publishing that book. I did it as a cathartic experience, right? Just a way to get my thoughts and my emotions and everything down on paper, get them out of my head. And I was really excited about it because it was the first time I had ever written like a full-length book. And I told one of my relatives about it, and then she said something about, well, are you going to publish it? And I said, no, but I didn't write it for that. And she said something along the lines of, well, what's the point of writing it if you're not going to publish it? And I about went ballistic. We were riding in a car at the time, or she was driving, I was riding, and I just about punched a hole through the roof. Like, I was so mad. It was like taking everything that I had accomplished and saying, well, if it's not making money, it's not worthwhile. Why would you do it? And I just lost it. Uh, because I didn't do it for her. I didn't do it for faceless masses. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it entirely to get my emotions out, to take these experiences I had been through and purge them from my brain, right? And for somebody to sit there and tell me that that was worthless, that that was time wasted by someone who I know has never sat down and done many, many of the things she wanted to do, um, it just, so I would imagine that is kind of how it feels to be told something like that, to be said, oh, I wish I had the time to read that you did. Well, you do have the time to read that I do. Mostly, most people have the time to read that I do. It's just that they do other things. They let other things get in the way, or they just don't want it badly enough. You have to want it, right? You have to make time to do it. You have to uh, push aside other things, doom scrolling, TV watching, movie watching, video game playing, etc., etc. You have to actually prioritize reading. It's not a matter of magic reading time doesn't just appear, right? So yeah, maybe I am a reader in a bad mood. I don't know. Question number 5. If there is something Oh, excuse me. If there's anything else you'd rather do than read, is it something A, embarrassing, B, illegal, C, profoundly shameful, or D, all of the above? I would say that it's probably embarrassing and profoundly shameful. I don't think it's illegal. And it's to take from the last question and put into this one. I am not immune to doom scrolling and spending a whole evening watching television or watching movies or just staring at the ceiling and or walking around in this room and looking at the shelves and going, I should read that book, and then wandering to another shelf and going, well, I should read that book. So really, the embarrassing and shameful thing that I do is that I waste time that I could spend reading. I am as prone to that as anybody, and so it's not that I don't understand that. It's just that you really do have to make reading a priority, right? You really do at some point just have to pick up the book and read, which is like anything else, like working out or building models or whatever. You at some point you have to stop thinking about it and you have to do it. Um, I don't know. Question number 6. Do you think reading makes you charming and witty or paranoid and socially inept? Do you really care? Well, I don't think that reading will make you either of those things because, sure, when you're reading, you're taking in lots of information and lots of other people's observations and jokes and that sort of thing. Uh, but socializing is a different activity than reading, right? And I think that probably the paranoid and socially inept among us, myself being one of them for the majority of my life, I think we used reading as an escape from that, right? As a way to insulate ourselves from that and have something else to do. And while everybody else is being witty and charming and socializing with each other, we can sink into our books and not have to deal with that whole thing that that we are inept at doing, that we feel awkward and uncomfortable being a part of, in which it feels that there is no place for us. I know that's how it was for me, right? I spent my entire like childhood and teenage years and all that uh, stuck in books because I found myself to be completely socially awkward and incompetent in that sphere of existence. And so I don't think that reading made me that way. I think that I latched on to reading because it was an escape from all that. Do I really care? Yeah, I mean, yes, I really do care because reading is something near and dear to my heart. So I do care about how it affects the reader. Uh, but but I don't think that reading is a cause of any of that. Number 7, when you meet someone new, how soon before you inform them that you like to read books? How long has it been since I've met somebody new? Like even, on a more than hello, nice to meet you sort of level, I'm not even really sure. And then all the people that I have met and like talked to recently have been on Booktube just about. Uh, like I said, I'm not a wildly social person. I'm a homebody, and I have never found it easy to make friends. I'm not an easy socializer. I don't really, that is something that is like magic to me, right? And I don't understand it. Um, but I would say, or well, here it's A, B, or C. Immediately, B after a few drinks, or C on a need to know basis. I would say C on a need to know basis, really, because in the regular shallow surface level conversations that I tend to have with people that I encounter day to day, reading just generally doesn't come up. What's really strange is that even when I meet people in bookstores and things and talk to them for a minute, very rarely does it ever have anything to do with books. So, uh, I guess just on a need to know basis, right? I mean, there aren't there isn't a lot of hope that the people that you meet in the streets are going to be people that know a lot about books and a lot about reading, which is not always the case. I mean, the thing about readers is that we are able to blend in with the rest of the population pretty much completely. And nobody would ever know unless they find you reading somewhere, or unless you're in a bookstore or you're in a library. Uh, and then, I mean, you pretty much know right there that you're dealing with somebody else who reads, right? Whereas just out and about, nobody knows you read. And so I have been surprised by some of the people that I have met who turn out to be readers because you wouldn't think that just looking at some of them. The last Prompt number 8 is tag anyone with a sense of humor. And apparently I spell humor with 2 U's in the British fashion. I didn't know that. That is funny. But anyway, I may tag some people. I may not. Who knows? Uh, this was fun to do. I'm not sure if I really managed to do it very well, but I've enjoyed doing it. And I want to thank Kevin Toll for tagging me. And I want to thank Robert G., Reader of Books, for creating this tag. I want to thank you for watching. And before I go, I am fooling with new camera angles. So what do you think of this angle? I'm not sure how I feel about it. I could use a little bit of feedback. So let me know. And like I said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.